Okay, Shalom. Right, today I'm out in the garden because it is so hot. I can't even sit inside. Plus, where I normally do my recording, the sun is so bright coming through, it just makes no sense. So I'm out in the garden. You may pick up the birds. Hopefully there won't be much other noise than that. This is a very exciting lesson. This is cracking a code that's been long overdue to be cracked, because it causes a lot of division and separation. And as we can see from here, it's simply a coded message, a very hidden coded message, and there's some very profound secrets to be revealed. So let's go through them then. First of all, we need to go look in the Talmud to where this reference to the boiling excrement is found. Many times on my journey I've been quoted this about Yeshua, or Yeshu as he's called, with his name erased, and that will come up today, is in a boiling pot of excrement. And it's taken from the Talmud, and it's taken from this. Surprisingly, it's to do with Onkelos, who was a convert to Judaism from Rome. The whole story of Onkelos is absolutely incredible. He is the one whose Targum, the Aramaic Targum translation of the Torah, is in every single Chumash. So in all the 5 books of Moses, you get the translation of Onkelos included with it. Okay, so here it is. It says he's trying to find out whether it's worth him going to convert to Judaism. So obviously he's up to some things that are quite suspicious. Onkelos then went and raised Yeshua the Nazorean from the grave through necromancy. Onkelos said to him, "Who is most important in the world where you are now?" Jesus said to him, "The Jewish people." Onkelos asked him, "Should I then attach myself to them in this world?" Jesus said to them, "Their welfare you shall seek, their misfortune you shall not seek." Okay, so I just brought myself up. Their welfare you shall not seek, their misfortune you shall not seek. For anyone who touches them is regarded as if he were touching the apple of his eye. So that's taken from Zechariah 2:12. Let's read on. So it's very interesting. And for all those things that I've mentioned, this is prior to his conversion. If he'd have converted, he wouldn't have been able to perform necromancy. But even that in itself is, quite revealing, shall we say. Onkelos said to him, "What is the punishment of that man?" A euphemism for Jesus himself. These words are included, by the way. It's not actually in there. I do believe their words are included. A euphemism for Jesus himself in the next world. Jesus said to him, "He is punished with boiling excrement." As the Master said, anyone who mocks the words of the sages will be sentenced to boiling excrement. And this was his sin, as he mocked the words of the sages. The Gemara comments, "Come and see the difference between the sinners of Israel and the prophets of the nations of the world. As Balaam, who was a prophet, wished Israel harm, whereas Jesus the Nazarene, who was a Jewish sinner, sought their well-being." Okay, so that's from the Talmud, Gittin 57a 3-4. So we're really going to have a look at this comment then, the boiling excrement. Here, look, Zohar Ratahat. This is the coded message that we're going to try and crack. Let's go and have a look. In the next lesson, I haven't got time to do it in this lesson because it would go on too long. I actually apply a cipher to these words, the same cipher that's used in the Mezuzah scroll for Adonai Eloheinu Adonai. I don't know whether you're aware, but it does come up in this lesson. So at that point, as soon as it came up, I thought to myself, that's quite interesting that particular cipher is associated with this particular phrase, boiling excrement in the Hebrew. Let's cipher up this and see what that brings out. So I ciphered it both ways, forwards and backwards in the alphabet. I'll describe it when I get to the point. And incredible gematria. So this is the first part 1, and then there should be a part 2, which is looking at the cipher of this particular phrase. So this is the phrase that is used, boiling excrement, and these are the numbers for it. Incredible numbers associated with this, by the way. Let's go and have a look at some of them. First of all, Pidyon Nefesh. So this means redemption of the soul. Okay, this redemption of the soul, this is as it's spelt in Exodus 21:30. There's a couple of mentions of Pidyon Nefesh, and it's spelt slightly different within the Tanakh, but this is the spelling of Pidyon Nefesh. If you want to go look at that verse, Exodus 21:30, it's spelt like that, redemption of the soul. So Mispagdol plus the regular equals 1224, exactly the same as boiling excrement. So this is coded message to let us know in some way that involved in this exile, if you like, of the exile of Yeshua, it's somehow involved. There's also connected to this concept of Pidyon Nefesh, where his soul needs redemption. Let's not forget, he was sold by his own brothers to the hands of the Romans, and he has been sold, if you like Joseph was sold into slavery. This time it's Edomite slavery. He needs a Pidyon Nefesh, he needs a redemption of the soul from that place. So that's for a start. I'm going to say this in advance. When you do cipher the name up, because it will make a lot of sense. I will go through this much more clearly in the next lesson, but when you do cipher up this, it comes to 433. 433 is Galuth, which means exile. So essentially it's telling, this is really coded message. We don't get to it in this lesson because we're going to look at some really incredible other stuff instead as a preliminary, but in the next lesson you'll see that it's really code name for Galuth, for exile itself. Yeshua has been placed in exile for an ultimate good, just as Joseph was exiled into Egypt for an ultimate salvation. Okay, and I will go through that. But his soul needs redeeming from that place of exile. He was sold into Rome, the hands of Rome. The Vatican is symbolic of Rome now, and he needs redeeming back. He's not a Roman, he's a Hebrew. Just as Joseph was not Egyptian, he was a Hebrew, even though he looked like an Egyptian. So that's the first important note to make. This is coded name. This is a code name for the necessity of a Pidyon Nefesh on behalf of Yeshu HaMashiach, Yeshu HaNotzri. And then straight away again we've got this other highly significant reference to Yeshua Sahapanim. Yeshua Sahapanim is quoted in the Rosh Hashanah Machzor. It's one of the prayers in the Rosh Hashanah Machzor, and is mentioned alongside Metatron, Sah Ha'olam, and Eliyahu Hanavi. Okay, so who is it that we need a Pidyon Nefesh for? Yeshua Sahapanim. This is telling us that Yeshua is significant. It's letting us know that Yeshua is Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, that's essentially what this is. That 153 is very significant as well, because one, it's 153 fishes in the dragnet, the last sign after he'd been resurrected and he appeared to his disciples. This was a significant number that in Christianity doesn't get translated. There's no understanding of it essentially, apart from some reference by Jerome, I think, back to a verse in Ezekiel that talks about many fishes and things like that. And there is definitely some connection to that. But 153, and I've mentioned this before, is connected to the phrase who has ascended into heaven and descended, bearing in mind at this point he'd already ascended into heaven and is descended and is on his way into exile. And that phrase, who has ascended into heaven and descended, I've gone over this a lot. If you look at the initial letters of that, it spells Me'esav. Where does he need redeeming from? Mashiach Yeshua. He's redeeming from Me'esav, from Esav. He's been sold into Edomite slavery, which is essentially Esav. It says in the Torah, Edom is Esav, or Esav is Edom. So he's been sold into Edomite slavery, Me'esav, and he's redeeming from there. The sign of the 53 fishes were letting us know that he needed to be redeemed at some point from, just like fishes are caught in the water, he needed to be hauled back in from where it is that he was exiled to. And also 153, the initial, how you would write that, because obviously there's no numerals in Hebrew, it's letters, and the letters of 153 are Kof, Nun, Gimel, and they are associated with a phrase in Talmud, a phrase in the Tanakh, Karo na gam, call out now. And as you can see, I've talked about this before, the first two letters, corona, are exactly the same as, and the rabbis have made the association to this being the coronavirus. So at the time of the coronavirus, which we're still in that time, aren't we, vaccines and all things like that, that was the time to call out now, start to bring him out from where he's been exiled. Okay, so corona gam, also that word, kof nun Gimel, which is 153, Kof is 100, Nun is 50, Gimel is 3, Kof Nun Gimel, Corona Gam. The word Gam is got the gematria of 43, and 43 is the gematria of Esav. The ordinal of Esav is 43. Not only that, twice did he call out to his father and said, bless me also. Gam, bless me, Gam. So that word Gam is associated very much with Esav. So Corona Gam, call out now, me from Esav. Call out me also. Because Yeshua essentially had to get dressed up as Esav. Talked about this in the last lesson. Basically, when he was sold into Esav, Yeshua represents Yosef, and on the tree of life, Yosef is symbolic of the male anatomy. But when he's been sold into Esav, which is represented by the foreskin, it's basically his Hebrew identity as being covered up by the thick foreskin of Esav. You know, he needs to be redeemed from there. He needs to be pidyon nefesh from that whole situation. And essentially, why did he go there? To transform Esav. To transform Esav from chaos into Shalom, and this is what he's been doing. He is Sar Shalom, Prince of Peace. Okay, so on a young lion and a cobra you will tread. That also comes to, this is quite interesting actually, because you've got up here, you've got the two words. The first word, the square ordinal of the first word, boiling, okay, is 386. What is 386? It's code name for Yeshua again. So we're talking about something here. Something is very mysterious. It's like Vilna Gaon said. He said that the entire Aggadic tales in the Talmud are the exile of the Torah of Moshe. This is the foreskin, if you like. These Talmudic tales that we've just read, you know, that are highly mystical coded language, and it's up to a third of the entire Talmud is Aggadic tales like this. The Vilna Gaon basically said that is the Torah of Moshe in exile. That in and of itself, do you know what this produces? This produces foreskin. Just like the fact that the whole story of Yeshu HaNotzri, who's a Hebrew, got dressed up as a Roman god within Catholicism and then through Protestantism and things like that. The truth of who he was, the actual Hebrew truth of Yeshua, is got all disguised. But so too did the Torah of Moshe. What's the consequence of this? When it's garbed up in a foreskin of Esav, it creates ego. Because Esav is our ego, it's our flesh. It causes our flesh to be inflamed with lust and perversion and desire and war, essentially war. It causes division, it causes separation, it causes false sense of superiority. This is ego that it inflames. Stories like this inflame the Jewish person against the Christian, as if they're somehow more superior, not knowing that believing this in its state is doing the exact same thing that they're thinking Yeshua was guilty of. And it's concealing a great hidden mystery. Okay. The Christian people reading that, this is what the Jewish people say about Yeshua. It creates a massive, massive husk of ego against their own Jewish brothers. It's a problem. We need to discern what is really been told here, what mystery has really been revealed to us. Wonderful, profound secrets if we're humble enough to want to search that truth out. If we want to let go of ourselves enough for there to be union rather than separation, for there to be love rather than hatred, for there to be peace rather than chaos and war, you know, we got to put down our swords. And this is what Mashiach ben David will do. So on the young lion and the cobra you will tread again. This is talking about highly messianic times, isn't it? So this comes to 2936, which is 2 times this part, the excrement part. Okay, so we've pointed out that 386 is Yeshua, and this is pointing to this part. There's quite a lot that's associated with this number, I think. Yeah, this is another one, isn't it? It's very mysterious. That should have a dalet in front of it. Just let me go change that. Okay, so that I've changed it now. Derech Nachash Alei Tzur, the way of a serpent upon the rock. And this is again a highly mystical phrase, isn't it, from Proverbs. But it also comes to a Mispah Gadol numbering of 1468, so we can see it's likened to this exile. And Nachash is always connected to the Mashiach. The Nachash is the false Mashiach, if you like, and Mashiach is the one that will overcome the Nachash. So often what our understanding of the Mashiach is really a Nachash. I've pointed this out before. You know, in Egypt, where the tefilli, where the phylacteries go, they have a cobra, a raised up cobra, at the forefronts of their minds, whereas you wear the tefillin in Judaism, the phylacteries. Okay, they're there instead. However, this is also like supernal da'ath, our supernal knowledge, which is what we're in the process of being restored, because Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and our da'ath fell. Our da'ath is the sphere, the person who is our supernal da'ath is Moshe, the concept of the Mashiach. So it's our concept of the Mashiach that is exiled, just as the Egyptians have the raising cobra on their hats, you know, at the forefront of their head. We have got a raising cobra there as well. We have got a Nachash there because we've not got the true concept of Mashiach as revealed in the Torah of Mashiach. Sorry, the Torah of the mind of God, which is the Torah. Not the Torah of Moshe that is in exile, but the actual Torah when we divest it from the exile into which it's exiled. Get rid of exile. Okay, so the Mashiach appears as a Nachash. When Mashiach is fully revealed, the Nachash is no more. So this is how it's connected to this. So we can see the Nachash is the Mashiach in exile. Okay, so the way of the serpent on a rock. It's a connection. It's messianic. That's essentially what it is. Right, so see, these have come out in the wrong order, so I apologise for that. 1484, the daughters of Lot, Benoth Lot. Okay, so it says Mashiach is found in Sodom. This is in the Zohar. This refers to the daughters of Lot. Why? Because, well, for a start off, Ruth was a Moabite who was one of Lot's daughters, who was brought forth from one of Lot's daughters, Moab, from the father. Okay, so from Ruth there came Oved, and then Oved Yishai, then Yishai David. So that is where that is showing how the Mashiach comes from Ruth, who was a convert to Judaism from the Moabites. She was originally a Moabite, but she was also a daughter of Lot. Okay, and there's very mystical texts say, because it says in scriptures, I found my servant David, and the Zohar says, well, where was he found? And he was found in Sodom. In that refers to the daughters of Lot, because obviously Lot was taken from Sodom, he was saved from Sodom. Okay, so there's all kinds of, again, it's all very messianic and mystical. So 981, this is really just allowing you to see that you see this boiling excrement, it's so linked into very mystical concepts regarding the Mashiach. They're highly mystical concepts regarding the Mashiach. So it's letting you know in no uncertain terms that we're talking about a coded message. We need to crack the code. So all this is wonderful. How is it linked? The square ordinal is 981. Which comes up again, by the way. There's another number, isn't there? 981 comes up again, I do believe. Anyway, we'll come to that if we come to that today. And where are we linked in then? Just let me have a think. Oh, it's up here. It's if we take the square ordinal, the total square ordinal, 1854, and we add that to the actual ordinal, 108, it comes to 1962, which is 2 times 981, so 2 times this. Okay, this is a highly significant number. We're probably going to have a look at that. And another thing to point out, that 108 is a filling out of Moshe. Hopefully I'll bring that up as well. It's a highly significant number. So this is taken from Isaiah 23:17. We've got this number here, 777. That represents the Shabbat. Every day is represented by the Aleph, and the Aleph held out is 101. Where do we get that from? The six Alephs, I think, in the first verse of Torah, that refers to the 6 working days of creation. So that's the 6 Alephs. So the 7th Aleph would be 7 times 111. Aleph spelt out comes to 111. Aleph Lamed Peh. So that's 1, 30 and 80 is 111. So 6 times that for 6 working days is 666, which is the exact number of, within Christianity it's the number of the beast. Within Judaism, on the holy side of that, it's one of the fillings out of Moshe. Okay, so 7 days would be 777. 102 is Emunah. This is a whole process. We're in the whole process of correcting our faith, our Emunah, the bitachon in Yod He. Add those together, they come to 981, which is a filling out of Yonah as well, it's saying there. Okay, so I don't think I've even brought that number up. So 327 times 3. And that 70 years is referring to the Mashiach, because if you go and read the verse in Isaiah, it's talking about the one king. And as it says in the Talmud, who is this referring to? This is referring to Mashiach, who is the one king. Okay. Shiva'im Shana. King David lived for 70 years exactly. He was born in Shavuot and died 70 years later on Shavuot. And the 70 years he got from Adam, because Adam lived for 930 years, but he should have died within the day, which was equivalent to 1,000 years. So he said that David couldn't have been born unless Adam had given him those 70 years. So again, we've got a connection to David, the 70 years. Shva'im Shana. Right, and then we've got this one. Adonai Yotewaweh Ata Yodata. O Lord God, you alone know. Okay, so that comes to 981, 135 ordinal, and that comes to 1116. This number is very significant because it's also this as well. The whole regular total is 1116. So we've got two instances where these two are connected. Just wait a minute. Okay, so decided to bring this whole verse up from Ezekiel 37 for this, O Lord God, you alone know. And what's that relating to? It says, then he said to me, Son of man, can these bones come alive? These are talking about the valley of the dry bones, which is the tribe of Ephraim, the lost house of Joseph. And I answered, O Lord God, you alone know. So there's a very profound messianic connection, isn't there? This is all the concept of the resurrection of the dead also. And Yeshua is the resurrection. So there's big connections there. It's very interesting. Like I say, these again are highly messianic concepts, and it's to do with the correction of faith. The final correction of faith, the final attribute of faith that must be corrected after we believe in the coming of the Mashiach, is in the resurrection of the dead. Okay, and this is very much associated to the bones of Joseph because of the exact point at which the Torah indicates the resurrection of the dead is at the exact point where this Red Sea is split and Moshe sings the song, Oz Yeshua, then Moshe will sing. And the sages say this points to, because it's written in the future tense, it's not talking about Moshe singing at that exact point. This is talking about the final appearance of Moshe as Mashiach ben David. And then he will sing that song, the song of the sea. Okay. So this is, and that is the only indication in Torah in the resurrection of the dead, and it's talking about the resurrection of Moshe. What caused the sea to split at that exact point? Said you say it was the coughing of Joseph, the bones of Joseph, and all the good that Joseph had done in exile. And Moshe had actually pleaded the reason why, according to the Midrash, there were two reasons how the bones of Joseph got brought out from the Nile. There was under massive necromancy, there was under massive amounts of magic and things to keep those bones in Egypt, because the Egyptians were powered as a consequence of having the bones of Joseph. So it took Moshe a great effort to bring them out. When he did bring them out, one of the reasons in the Midrash, the good reason for him bringing them out, was he said to Joseph, petition Hashem with all the good that you've done. So, it's very easy when we're looking at Christianity and sort of like noting all the bad that has occurred and all the evil that have committed, especially against the brothers Yehuda and the Jews. It's just been totally and utterly unacceptable throughout history. However, there's also been, that has not been the whole story. It's been a very tragic consequence of the exile, a tragic consequence of the ego that comes as a result of the teachings and the revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef being encrusted in the foreskin of Esau. This is a consequence for this. It is dangerous for Yaakov. However, there's also been great good that has been done in a very hidden and concealed way, just as Joseph was concealed in pharaonic garb. Joseph, Mashiach ben Yosef, concealed in Edomite garb, i.e. the equivalent of a foreskin, has still done very great good, because hidden in all that is this Hebraic fulfillment of Torah, which is the entire secret hidden meaning of the Torah. It's the entire secret hidden way which God has been, rectifying the whole of creation to be rectified, so that we become vessels of Shalom. Okay, I've talked about this a lot, so let's go back. Right, so just to point out again, then we've got a double connection to that. There's also a connection to the Shema with this. I don't think I've actually brought that up. I might try and bring that up. Ha'ivrim comes to 327. What is Ha'ivrim? Ha'ivrim is the Hebrews, and it says, 4 times, I think there's 4 scriptures that say when Moshe's communicating with Pharaoh, go to Pharaoh and say, the Lord God of the Hebrews, Ha'ivrim, says, let my people go. These are all significant numbers, by the way, but 327 is connected to this boiling excrement. It's letting you know he's not a Roman that's in there, he's a Hebrew. Even the Talmud distinguishes him as Jewish. So that's just worth bearing in mind. 393 if you had them both together for the regular and the ordinal, and 399 is Shiloh. He is Shiloh. Okay, Shiloh. Shiloh's also got the same gematria as Moshe. You know, Moshe is Yeshua, come again, and it will be the soul of Mashiach, the soul of Moshe that comes again as Mashiach ben David. This is the cipher that's found in every single Mezuzah scroll. So we can see that is also connected up to this number 327, the 981, and the square ordinal plus the ordinal. So in every Mezuzah scroll you have got this phrase. It can't even be read because it's a cipher. And what's it a cipher of? It's a cipher of Yod He Wahweh A Elohi Enu Yod He Wahweh, or Hashem Eloheinu Hashem, you know, Yod He Wahweh, our God, Hashem, and it comes from the Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Okay, so it's all ciphered up in a special coded way, where you go one further on in the alphabet. So, for example, a Yod becomes a Chaf, a He becomes a Vav becomes a Zayin, and a He becomes a Vav, and an Aleph becomes a Bet, a Lamed becomes a Mem for Eloheinu, Yod He Wahweh. Okay, it comes to 114 ordinally. However, it comes to 213 regularly. 114 is 2 times Mashiach, so we know it's a coded sign for HaMoshiach. 57 is HaMoshiach, the ordinal of HaMoshiach. 114 plus 213 comes to 327. So again, connected to all these. It's an highly coded. The entire Mezuzah is a revelation of the Mashiach, and this is just another example that this phrase boiling excrement is a highly coded messianic. It's a highly coded and messianic secret that needs to be revealed. Okay, so this is even more interesting. So you've got the ordinals for Mashiach ben David, which is 82. The ordinal of Mashiach ben Yosef, 116. I think that number comes up again. If we can see even 116 in here, boiling excrement, it's 1,000 plus 116. So 1,000 stands for Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef. Okay, the full Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef, and also 1,000 is the big Aleph, which has got a value of 1,000, and Moshe rectified is also called the Aleph Gadol, the big Aleph. So 1,000 is very much related to the whole concept of Mashiach. And then we've got 116 added on to that, and 116 is Mashiach ben Yosef, specifically the ordinal for Mashiach ben Yosef. However, if you add on Mashiach ben David plus Mashiach ben Yosef, 116 plus Mashiach ben David, 129, you get 327. So exactly the same as this mystical coded cipher within every single Mezuzah scroll. Onkelos is also very much connected to the concept of the Mezuzah scroll. You'd have to read the story about that to find out. I haven't got time to go into detail today. Truth. Okay, so you've got 1. This is a square ordinal of a meth, truth. So you've got 169 square ordinal of the mem, 484 square ordinal of the tav. Add them together, 654, which is 2 times 327. So it's really the power of the truth. Okay? Emeth. So we can see the Hebrews is connected to truth. I've talked about this a lot. Who are Hebrews? Hebrews are people who are, it's totally and utterly synonymous with the truth in more than one way. Onachi Ivri, or Ivri Onachi. I am a Hebrew. The words that Yonah said connected to the concept of truth. Okay, we can see here another clear indication that the Hebrews is synonymous with truthful people, truth-seeking people. What did Yeshua say? He says, I am the truth. What is the only power that we've got that can help us to overcome A7 transforming from chaos into Shalom, from fantasy fiction and lies into truth? It's the truth. You can only fight the lies with the truth. This is the truth. This story of boiling excrement is a concealment. This is a revelation. Okay, so you got to got to always look beyond the surface, and when you get something so vile as the concept of boiling excrement, you've got to make sure in your mind that God wouldn't give us an instruction like that. He's given us something hidden. If you want to remain in a place of exile, you'll be still looking at a pot of excrement. If you want to move from a place of exile into redemption, then you're going to seek and find, aren't you? And you will seek and find the truth. Right, so this is a massive concept, isn't it? Yimach Shemo Zikro. So this is the initial letters of Yeshua. In fact, when you look in the Talmud, we've just had a look at, his name is not called Jesus or Yeshua. In there it's written Yeshu. He's given the name of his curse. Okay, so the name of, it's Yeshu HaNotzri. Not Yeshu HaNotzri, Yeshu HaNotzri, Yeshu the Nazorean. That's how it's called, but Notzri basically means Christian. So Yimach Shemo Zikro, may his name be erased and his memory. This is the curse of Yeshua. The initial letters come to Yeshu, 316. Yimach Shemo Zikro, they spell Yeshu. That's where we get the name Yeshu from. It literally means Yimach Shemo Zikro. So hidden in the curse is the blessing. So that's Yeshua. If we take from this total then, 463, the curse, which is Yeshu, we are left with 327. Remove the curse from Yeshua and you're left with the whole concept of the Mashiach. Okay? It's incredible. It's perfect. We see an utter perfection. And then we've got this connection, because up here, 1000, I've done two numbers the same colour, haven't I? So just bear that in mind, that I should have done different colours for this. So 1468, half of that is 734. So we've got a connection down here to this verse, which is, again, it's not wanting to leave Egypt, or it's wanting to go back into slavery. This is what usually happens when you are redeemed. You know, especially as like when you're a Christian, you feel all new and brand new and born again, and then you just go into the reality of life and it gets hard, and you want to abandon all that newness and just become, you know, go back to the way things were. So we remember the fish we ate in Egypt free of charge. Talked about this from last lesson as well. This came up last lesson. The cucumbers, the watermelons, the leeks and onions and the garlic. Okay, so 734, that's connected up to this number for excrement. You know, sometimes, because we don't make that full transition, do we? We stay in a state, in between state. You know, God has redeemed us from Egypt. God has redeemed us from the thickness of our exile, the darkness of our exile. But we're still in the desert wandering. And whilst we're in there, we're just full of complaints. We don't make the transition from exile into the promised land. We die in that in-between stage, in that desert. You know, out of 603,000, I think it's 603,550, 2 got in. 2 left Egypt got in to the Holy Land. This is the men. The rest died in the desert, in the wilderness, the Bamidbar, because they couldn't make that full transition. What does we mean by that? God could take us out of Egypt, but our job is to take Egypt out of us. How can we take Egypt out of us when we're saying things like this? And this is highly problematic in Christianity too. People literally experience salvation, it transforms their life, but where do they take that? They know where to go. They're stuck in this desert mode, this intermediary stage. They never make it all the way to the promised land because they're not doing the Torah that we're supposed to be doing. They've not got the boldness of his name. They don't maintain the boldness of his name that's been revealed to them, the mercy and the kindness of God that is revealed to them through experiencing the soul of Mashiach ben Yosef in exile. Okay, so what happens then? They start wandering, start complaining, you know, start coming up with all kinds of ideas like prosperity gospel and building up things like Vaticans and, you know, whatever's going to keep them busy in the desert. And they don't make the transition to the Holy Land. They don't return all the way. And as a consequence of that, it's very difficult to see, well, what has God actually done? You know, there's not much difference between these people and what you would find in Egypt. it's only one step away from Egypt, and they're making all these complaints, and they're complaining about the Holy Land and not going forward. So it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult to complete the task and to complete the journey, to keep your mind set on, well, what is it we're supposed to be doing? Well, you're supposed to be living his name as it's been revealed to you, living his name, which is the entire of the Torah. In terms of Christianity, and there are a lot of people that have done a lot of good, that's feeding the hungry, giving water to the thirsty, clothing the naked, visiting the prisoner, visiting the sick and things like that. All things that are to be found in Judaism. Loving your neighbour, loving your enemy. Spreading this message of salvation. That's what's meant to go on. And then what you find out is, all this message gets wrapped up in idol worship, and you've got things like Hillsong, which I've just watched a documentary on Hillsong, which is basically essentially people just worshipping money and worshipping, status and ambition and things like that, and music to a certain degree. But that's where people are trapped. There is a reality that you've got to face. That's where people are trapped, in that particular state at this time, and that's where they need the message to go and get them out of. But there again, you're in that desert then, aren't you? That's not really where it ends. You've got to go all the way back. You've got to find your way through the desert into the promised land, but that is something that doesn't always occur. And we end up with this problem, just complaining about how hard it is in the desert, instead of making the necessary progress. Right, so we've got this as well, which is quite an interesting verse from Exodus. It's 7,340, which is 5 times 1,468, so we've got to connect to that. This is the Mishkan in the wilderness, by the way. And these 50 golden clasps you shall fasten the curtain to one another with the clasps, so shall the Mishkan become one. So there's all kinds of incredible teachings and hidden stuff, even in that. Anytime there's a mention of oneness and things like that, it's all incredible stuff. So again, it's a connection to that, to this number. We're supposed to be building up our bodies as a temple, ultimately, where the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh resides within us in peace. We're supposed to get from a place of Esav, a place of evil inclination, a place of chaos, into a place of Shalom. And it's only in that vessel of Shalom, when we've gone through all those transformations, can we contain the name of Yod-Heh-Wah-Weh, that he desires to bestow. He desires to be near us, and he can't come near us because we've got all this chaos and all these complaints. We've lost sight of him. We've not even got our mind set on him getting near us. We've got our mind set on, well, if only I had enough money, if only I had this, if only I had that. It's just an endless shopping list. We're not on target. In other words, we've got to stay on target and complete the job. Right, so let's have a look at this. I think there's another one coming up. I'd put the wrong transition on then. That's normally the one that I do on the end. So there's where it's Moshe. Look, 108 is Moshe filled out. This is the ordinal of Moshe filled out to the first filling. So, and that's where the He is filled with the letter Yod. So that's talking about the level of Atziluth. The He is filling out with the name Moshe at the first level. So we know this is connected to Mashiach. That's what it's basically saying. It's totally and utterly connected to Mashiach in every way possible. So this is also filled out on the 8th day. So on the 8th day is connected to the Mishkan again. What we had the verse just then. The Mishkan is inaugurated on the 8th day. This was also the 8th day what Nadab and Abihu died because they brought foreign fire into that wasn't ordained. Okay, but the 8th day is also mystical and messianic, isn't it? Because we get the 7th day, which is the Shabbat, and then what we've got the 8th millennium, which is called the world to come, Olam Haba, the world that is coming. We're supposed to be able to experience that now. So this is that filled out where the vav is filled with a vav. So Bayom Hashmini, Bayom Hashmini, filled out to the first filling. Yeah. So that comes to 1116, exactly the same as that. Again, you can't get more messianic, can you? You can't get more mystical than the concept of the world to come. This is what we're desiring. This is full to Shuvah, isn't it? This is where we return to the place that, from what we've fallen from the Garden of Eden, to a state in a state of messianic consciousness where we're growing and growing and growing all the time. That will come in the world to come. It's what's called the world to come. It's also called the 8th day. So we can see how heavily connected it is to this concept. This is just a concealment, a massive concealment that causes a lot of problems. You've got to see beyond it. What's actually hidden there is phenomenal stuff. So then you've got this concept, front and back you have formed me, and that comes to 1115. So if we add a kollel for that, kollel to the phrase, we get 1116. Okay, not only that, but this as well, it's got a double connection, hasn't it? Because 558 is half of this, isn't it? Half of 1116. So there's a double connect to it. There's a connect from this verse from here. If we had a kollel, it's exactly the same. So there's a connection. Okay. But also the total mispar gadol numbering and the total regular numbering, if you add those two together, you get 5 times 558. Which we will come across that number. So front and back you have formed me. What does that mean? Well, it means that, we have all the wonderful experiences, like the phrase very good. All of creation is good, but then when man is formed, he is very good. As soon as man is created, it says he is very good. So that's why God can rest, because man has reached his status of very good. But they say very good is associated. The good is the good inclination, and the very is the evil inclination. So we have been made with both inclinations for a reason. The good inclination is symbolic of Yesod, which is our soul. Symbolic of Yaakov, which is our soul, and the evil inclination is symbolic of Esav, which is our body. Got to bring them both together, body and soul, front and back you have found me. So in order to go through that process of rectification, rectifying what is an evil inclination and bringing it into a state where that brings us to a place of shalom rather than to a state of chaos, you've got to go through that rectification of the 6 working days, and that's what we're in now. Before front and back you have found me. So everything has got purpose. Everything has got a wonderful purpose, and once we have gone through that process, we are very good. We're not just good, we're very good. So this is something that's definitely a meditation that I have, in my spiritual walk of life. I meditate on that phrase, very good, because I think that there's something in there that we've just got to remind ourselves that life ain't all roses round the cottage door. There's a lot of struggles and there's a lot of trials involved in it. And all those things are not meant to destroy us. They are meant to bring us to that place where we are actually rectified and we go through that transformation, because it's very chaotic. It's a very chaotic experience. It's a very troubling. Sometimes we get sucked in and sometimes you can't get out. Again, that's the desert, isn't it? Sometimes you're buried alive in the desert and you don't go all the way through that experience to take it through from chaos and to shalom, because it's just difficult to do, and a lot of people don't even know that that's what we're supposed to be doing. But for those that do make it through, we get to a place where we're very good. By the way, all of humanity will be corrected. The Mashiach is going to bring us all to that place of correction. Not one will be left behind. So we've got this to be encouraged. This is why we need to connect to the concept of the Mashiach. We need to be very clear and without doubt, because this is a powerful, the soul of the Mashiach is so powerful. It can help us get us from Egypt into the promised land. From a place of slavery, not an intermediary place where there's half truth and half lie, to a place of full truth, full revelation, completion, full tikkun. So this is obviously double connect up to this. So there's a reason why is hidden you know, is a reason why. Because you know what, to reveal the truth in this world is very difficult, and you see the effort and the toil that it takes is part of the rectification. We know when we go through that process from A to B that we've attained some level of rectification. We have progressed, we have evolved, you know. We're not just sat there looking at that as if it's something literal. You know, we know God enough to know that these don't add up. Okay, let's have a look at this more and be brave enough to know God enough to know that these things are just a concealment. They can't possibly mean what they appear to mean. You ought to dig deeper, and that includes digging deeper within yourself, you know, to even get beyond the ego that latches onto these things and wants these things to be literal. You got to break that chain. You want to break that, you know, the way that things like this, reading about stories like this, fuel our ego. You've got to break that cycle. You've got to be humble. You've got to know God. Knowing God helps you to be humble. It helps you to say that can't be. Great king like him can't just give us instructions like this to his children. You know, let's see what he has actually given us instead, shall we? You know, but if you're caught up in that ego cycle and looking for things to fuel your own ego, guess what this is going to do? Feed it. And then you're going to end up like Asaph, all excited and all full of chaos and lies and fantasy. And you think you're reading something holy. You couldn't be further away from your wow here. Okay, so, and then again, we've got the connection here, haven't we? Oh Lord God, you alone know. So that's the connection back to the valley of the dry bones. Only you know, God. Will these bones live? Yes, that's the answer, isn't it? Yes, they will actually. Right, this is another wonderful thing. So, Bariti Shalom. So we've got to get to that place of the covenant of peace, haven't we? 998, that's a wonderful number in and of itself, because it's very much connected to Mashiach ben Yosef. The number of Mashiach ben Yosef, according to Kol HaTorah and the Zohar, is 999. Got 999 footsteps below that we as a humanity want to toil to accomplish. The footsteps of the Mashiach, 999, that's a lot. The final footstep is the final up to the 1000th, from 999 up to 1000th, the revelation of the Aleph Gadol, the Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben David is 434, Mashiach ben Yosef is 566, together they come to 1000. I've already talked about 1000, haven't I? So we've got 999 to do down below to get from Egypt into the promised land. It's a lot of work. We're right at the end though. We haven't done it all on our own. We've just got like maybe one footstep to do. But that final footstep comes from above. It's an act of grace. Why does it have to come from above? It's a revelation of Mashiach ben David. It comes from above. It's nothing that we can do. We've literally got to depend on the grace of God for that revelation, to get us to that 1000th footstep, that 1000, that revelation of the Aleph Gadol. Why? Though, why can't we just sort it out? We came so far. We did 999. That's the hard work. Why does one just have to come down from above? Because we've got to experience grace. Without experiencing grace, we don't know the name of Yotewah, because part of his name is grace. One of his attributes is grace. You know, in both the revelation within the letter of the Torah and the revelation above the letter of the Torah, the revelation of the Torah of Moshe and the revelation of Moshe, both of them contain the name of Yotewah, by the way. That's the ultimate revelation that it should be leading to. The Torah that we have got, though, is all in exile. So we're going to get a mixture, some truth, some lie. One that's going to fuel our soul and one that's going to fuel our ego. And we've got to be able to separate, well, which of this text is truthful and which is a revelation of his name and which is a concealment of his name. And we've got to be very discerning, because we can get trapped very easily if we don't circumcise ourselves enough to be humble, to recognise that this can't possibly mean what it means. Right, so this is a covenant of peace, the covenant of Shalom. That's where we're heading. Got to get Shalom, because there's no vessel, according to the Mishnah, the last tractate, the last section of the Mishnah, the only vessel that can contain what Yod Heh Waw desires to be is Shalom. So we've got to attain that. The 116, by the way, is Mashiach ben Yosef. We've already talked about that. That's the ordinal of Mashiach ben Yosef. And again, we can see connection to that and that. If we had 2 kalal for each word, Bariti, 1 kalal, Shalom, 1 kalal, it comes to 1116. So that's how it's connected up here. So what are we talking about then? Why is this covenant of peace connected to this concept of boiling excrement found in the Talmud? I'll tell you why, because this is what I talked about on the last lesson. Yesod, according to Ramchal, Yesod is Shalom, right? This luminary, it's called within the book of Ramchal calls it a luminary, Shalom, the most significant luminary, okay? It's called Shalom. It's also Yesod. So Mashiach ben Yosef has descended into Esav, and it's as if Yesod, which represents the male anatomy on the tree of life, has been enclosed then in the foreskin of Esav. Esav represents the foreskin. Okay, so what's happened is he's got enclosed in Esav, which is Edom, which is Rome, and as you know, it should be like a Jew, but it's not. It should be fully circumcised 2 ways, but it's not. Islam came along, and then this revealed also the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef within Islam. But the concept of Mashiach ben Yosef within Islam is not got the Roman flavour to it, because it came, whereas the Roman Catholicism was born out of Pauline doctrine. The revelation of Yeshua found within the Quran was born out of the eastern leg of Christianity. So I think it's Waraka ben Nawfal was the uncle of Muhammad, and he was an Ebionite Christian. So, and he was the first person to declare Muhammad as a prophet, and he was also the scribe of Muhammad, because Muhammad was illiterate, so he basically wrote massive sections of the Quran, at least massive sections of the Quran. It was this man who was actually a Christian. Okay, so there's all wonderful things in there. Going back to this covenant of peace, however, you've got Yesod, who descended into Edom, which represents a foreskin. Then you've got this progression of Christianity, the revelation of Mashiach ben Yosef eventually being revealed within Islam, and that's like taking off that first layer of circumcision, that what's called the Aula. There's 2 layers of circumcision, 2 layers of Christianity. So the first layer was removed in Islam, the first layer called the Aula. The second layer, the Priya, is yet to be removed. Okay, because it's 2 stages involved. So in order for Yosef to make himself known to his brothers, both those layers have got to come off. And we're talking about a covenant of peace. A covenant, what's called, circumcision is called Brit Milah. It's a covenant. And in this case, it's a covenant of Shalom. We're wanting to reveal the Shalom. Yesod is Shalom, but not whilst it's got 2 coverings over it, or even 1 covering. It's got to be totally uncovered. The revelation's got to be complete. His Hebrew identity fully revealed. His soul fully redeemed. Pidyon Nefesh. So that's 1116. This is awesome, by the way. This is truly, and honestly, everything is perfection. It blows my mind. Incredible. So we've got Yehuda and Yosef. Okay, so the brothers that were quarrelling. The stick of Yehuda, the stick of Yosef. The way we took, is connected, isn't it, to the revelation of Ezekiel. So you've got the stick of Yosef, the stick of Yehuda. They need to come together as one stick. I do believe the gematria for the 1 stick comes up as well in this. Just it may do, or it may not. I'm pretty sure it does. So you've got Yehuda here. What is this from Yehuda? This is 30 the regular, 30 the ordinal, and 202 must be the square ordinal. Add them all up together, come to 262. You've got Yosef, which is 157, ordinal 48, and the square ordinal is 650. So if you add all those together, the 854 for Yosef and the 262 for Yehuda, it comes to 1116. That's where we're heading, by the way. We're heading for the unity between Yehuda and Yosef, because we're told about the one stick of Yehuda and the one stick of Yosef that must become, must be joined together, and then that becomes the one stick for the one shepherd who is David. Okay. It's phenomenal stuff. Oh, there we go then, to the one tree. Le'etz ehad. So this stick and this stick get joined together to become one stick. Le'etz ehad. Okay, 203 plus 59 comes to 262. So we can see how that's connected to the stick of Yehuda. The stick of Yehuda is equivalent to Mashiach ben Dawid. And this is letting you know the Mashiach ben Dawid is superior over Mashiach ben Yosef. The final revelation of the Torah of Mashiach is Mashiach ben Dawid, and we can see there's a supremacy to that. Okay, because it's exactly the same as the one stick, and this is very much related to also the Torah of Moshe. But the Torah of Yosef is what we've been experiencing these last 2,000 years of Edomite exile. That's got to be totally married up to the Torah of Moshe when it's divested from things like this, the exile, the exilic mindset, the Erev Rav mindset, the mixed multitude mindset. That is what it's exiled. The Torah of Moshe is exiled into. Yosef's exiled into Edom. Moshe's Torah is exiled into Erev Rav influence. So, there's 5 aspects to the Erev Rav. Talked about that a lot before. And then we've got this. So we've got Yaakov and Esav. This is what we're trying to get unified out. It represents body and soul, good inclination, evil inclination. But when Esav is subdued to holiness and becomes Shalom, because the value of Esav is 276, which is exactly the same as the value of Shalom. Shin Lamed Vav Mem. It comes to 330 and 40, so that's 376 for Vav. Exactly the same as Esav. That's where we don't get Shalom handed to us on a plate. Where do we get Shalom from? Well, we've got to do the hard work, the 999 footsteps, the footsteps of the Mashiach, which includes basically and essentially circumcising Esav from what he is to a state of Shalom. It's absolutely incredible. So Yaakov plus Esav, the brothers, the good inclination, the body and the soul, Israel and the nations, call it whatever you want, there's different terms and different codes for it. It's essentially the light and the vessel, the soul and the body, the Israel and the nations, Yaakov and Esav, male and female. There's all different code names for the same thing. Heaven and earth. But that comes to 558, 2 times of which would come to 1116, which is exactly the same as this coded message. So we know it just reveals everything. The place where you would never go looking for it is the most disgusting place possible, written in the Talmud, boiling excrement. Who would go and investigate that? You keep away from it. You're even warned by the rabbis to keep away from it. But when you look into it and you really research it out, everything good's hidden in there. People who don't know God wouldn't go looking. Then this is very messianic as well, isn't it? An eagle awakens its nest, hovering over its fledglings, its wings, it spreads its wings, and so on. There's a lot involved in this, but 2,232 is 2 times 1,116. If you add the ordinal to that, it comes to 2,646, which is 6 times emeth, 6 times truth. So again and again, truth is the power that we've got to give to Yaakov to overwhelm Esav and to complete that task of Esav, going from a place of being uncircumcised to circumcised, from a place of evil to a place of good, and from a place of chaos to a place of shalom, from a place of darkness to a place of light. Rectifying the vessels, doing that we need to accomplish, is all done via truth in meth. That's the power that we've got to get from slavery to freedom. Right, this is also very interesting because there's a double connection to this whole verse, because if you just take the first part, Kanesha Yo'ir Kano Al, or no, up to Kano, so Kanesha, like an eagle, or as an eagle, Yo'ir Kano, awakens its nest. That's actually his nest, isn't it? Kano, I do believe. So 1116 for that first part. So then we also know that Al Gozalo Yorochef Yishrosh Kanafau is also 1116, because that is 2 times 1116. So there's a massive connection between this verse. The rabbis say this verse is basically us in exile, you know. And also that Kanafau, the wings, that's connected to the talit, isn't it? You know, the talit, and the tzitzits are connected to the knaf, which means the wings or the corners even. And the whole concept of the bird is definitely messianic, because you've got the body of the bird, which is Moshe, you've got the right wing of the bird, which is Mashiach ben David, you've got the left wing of the bird, which is Mashiach ben Yosef. And essentially the right and left wing as love and joy. If you can't do what you've got to do in this life with love and joy, you're off target, essentially. You know, the whole concept of Mashiach is to bring us to a place of love and joy, you know, where we're experiencing true joy and we're experiencing true love, and we definitely exile from those at this time. We definitely need to be reconnected to our purpose in life, because not many people are experiencing true love and not many are experiencing true joy. We're experiencing a lot of the opposite of that. We're experiencing a lot of hate, a lot of cruelty, and a lot of sadness. We need to get back on track, and that's why you need to start connecting to the concept of the Mashiach, because the whole concept of the Mashiach is to uplift our soul, to bring us to that place of service where everything we think, say and do, we do with love and joy. They're the optimum emotions of the human experience, but we are definitely, as a collective humanity, we are suffering in this regard greatly. Can't really look at the humanity as it and say, all right, we just filled with love and joy. The love is not real love, and the joy is not real joy. It's usually like drug induced, and you know, we're just lacking. We need to get back on track with that one. So as an eagle awakens its nest, again, you know, we need that, don't we? We need that connection to the whole concept of Mashiach. And also the Mashiach is in the bird's nest. Kanzipor is in the bird's nest. There's all kinds of messianic secret codes involved with that. That is waiting in the bird's nest. But essentially, whilst we're in exile, we're all like the evil that's preventing us from accessing those levels of love and joy, is the evil we're all subject to, is called klippa, which means a shell. So we're basically like shells. We're like birds trapped in a shell that we can't get out of. We can't experience, you know, we can't even feel what it's like to fully fly like eagles in the sky. You know, we're just trapped in this uncomfortable situation where we know we're not reaching our potential. And it's just about breaking out of that evil shell, isn't it? And experiencing that redemption. So there's all kinds of connections that is to the bird. It's all coded messages to allow you to know at some point we've got to reach a place of maturity where we've got to get out of that shell. Got to peck our way out. It's hard. It's even harder if we stay in the shell, isn't it? We're going to rot and putrefy in our current situation. You've got to change. You've got to make you've got to do what's necessary to get yourself out. And then this is incredible, isn't it? Ha-Gerizim. I've actually seen that from Ithamar in Israel. There's the 2 mounts, the Mount of Blessing and the Mount of Curse. So this is obviously the Mount of Blessing, Mount Gerizim. This is where the Samaritans live, by the way. The Samaritan communities on this mountain. And that's a whole fascinating thing, by the way. I don't think we've been told the whole truth regarding that community. But the Sheikh will teach us all these wonderful things that we're missing out on now. Right, so the Mispah Gadol of Mount Gerizim is 1025 plus 89 ordinal. 89 is actually the ordinal for Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. So, you know, you want to experience the true blessings and be on the true mountain of life, you've got to take the evil inclination, which is Esav, and transforming from that into Shalom, into peace. Go through that whole rectification process that's essential. So that comes 1114, plus 2 kalel for each word, Har and Gerizim. That comes 1116. So that links us back to all these incredible concepts that are liberating, by the way. And that's just that entire verse taken from Deuteronomy 31:11. It says, as an eagle awakens its nest, hovering over its fledglings, it spread its wings, taking them and carrying them on its pinions. So that's Deuteronomy 32:11. So you're right at the end of the Torah with that one, aren't you? The regular of that comes to 3,392, which is 8 times 424, and 424 is Mashiach ben David. So we know it's messianic. It's the numbers of the Messiah 8 times. Mashiach ben David is the final revelation of the Messiah. Okay, so it's all incredible stuff. That's what I'm saying. But before we get there, we've got this phenomenon, haven't we, from Jeremiah 31. This is the beginning of the new covenant, by the way, isn't it? You'll probably be picking up those bird songs on the microphone, I hope so, because they're beautiful, aren't they? It says, how long will you hide, O backsliding daughter? For the Lord has created something new on the earth. A woman shall go after a man. So that comes to a regular and ordinal that add up together to come to 4,464, which is 2 times 2,232. So that links up to the eagle verse, doesn't it? But it's 4 times 1,116 and 8 times 558. So it adds up to all these concepts that we've talked about. And what is that? That's the beginning of the new covenant. If you read on it, just talks about the new covenant. But it's Hachadash. So they're all connected in such a wonderful way. It's incredible revelation. Like I say, next time I do a cipher on this and show you how it's connected to the concept of Mashiach again when you put the cipher on it. So there's more teaching to come. I hope you enjoyed that. There's a lot to take in. With that, I will say Shalom. Please share and subscribe.